This is the Trusting Our Men interview series, where I explore and unpack what is still stopping us from cultivating trust, partnership, and safety with our men. Join me and my co-host Madelyn Moon as we have difficult conversations with conscious men in hopes of building a bridge of more compassion and understanding. Hello and welcome to Trusting Our Men again. I'm Nadia, your host for this series, and I am so excited today. We have a nice long distance video phone call here with SHIV BHARAT. SHIV BHARAT's a transformational life coach, a teacher, a healer, and a yogi. His personal development, his journey into personal development and spiritual evolution started 13 years ago after some deep personal setbacks and hitting the lowest point in his journey when he decided to really undergo some soul searching. And now he is running local and international retreats and workshops, as well as one-on-one sessions with individuals, couples, and groups. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me over here. Looking forward to our conversation and sharing my insights.
Awesome. So what we love to start everyone off with is we're just really curious, what is it that is real for you right now in the realm of gender relations?
To me, what I feel is real to me in the realm of gender relation is the idea of voicing our truth, trusting our own self, trusting another, and really living from an authentic space where we are not letting the guilt, shame, fear overpower us personally as well as our relationships. So I personally feel it's a big shift happening around the globe, and people are really feeling that conscious evolution, conscious connection, because so far whatever we have been told or whatever the media or the films or society has been telling us, somehow it's not working anymore. Somehow there is partly I wouldn't say it's all wrong, but I would say there are things that needs to be looked into, things that needs to be researched, and also going with the modern times, with the present times. It's very important that we uh, step into ourselves, step into our power, and really make a call from that authentic self, that what is important to me, who am I, what am I here for, what does this relationship mean to me, am I really ready for it, or I'm just going into it because of the social stigmas or the social uh, pressure, whatever, friends telling us no, you should do it. But I think that's the real key that we need to start looking into. That's a real key that we should start to investigate. And then from that space, I feel a lot can happen. A lot of healing can happen. We can get rid of a lot of patterns and conditioning that we have been brought up with. So
Yeah, so I love that. I love that you're speaking so much to this idea of us voicing our truths and the trust that has to come with that. And so I'm really curious to hear more about what are you seeing in the world right now that's stopping or challenging that building of trust?
I feel a lot of expectations from men, expectation from women, and when that expectations goes higher, we tend to drift from our real purpose. When I expect a woman to act in certain way and she's not doing it, then it comes to a stage where we just losing that love, we are losing that trust, and we're not really. And for that, I personally feel, which I really use in my work and I also in my personal life, is to step back, go it, work with yourself, look into yourself, work on your personal evolution, and also realize that we have both aspects within us, irrespective of our gender. We are both masculine and feminine inside. And once we can have a healing relationship to that feminine inside a man, I can really feel that connect going out into the world. I can be more at harmony and more at peace. I'll have more compassion to the feminine outside. And likewise, a woman will have more compassion if she has done her work with a masculine inside. She will
Yeah.
not go out of bounds to ask men to, of course, there are certain things that we as men and women have in our strengths, but it's just about not putting too much expectations and undue, stresses
Yeah.
on each other.
So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how the interplay of our inner masculine and our inner feminine in each of us is playing with, is sort of interacting with the expectations that we have based on our gender roles in society. So, it's one thing to be someone who is very integrated and has worked on masculine and feminine. So you can have let's say, I'll just sort of anchor it into an example. You can have a woman who has cultivated her masculine beautifully, but still living in a world that doesn't necessarily give her the same opportunities as someone who is physically in a male body. And so I'm curious how you see those two interacting in terms of the expectation piece of men and women.
Yeah, as you rightly said, and that is what is happening in today's world with empowerment and with the opportunities the women are getting, and they are stepping out of homes, they're going out into the world, creating new ideas, bringing them into the play, and also creating business opportunities that were never seen before, like 20, 30, 40 years before. So there has been a renaissance of change, as how it's the interplay is happening, and for men also to realize that it's no more the old ancient way of dealing with that thing. The whole idea of a man is the dominating force. We have to also come to understand that there has to be a part of equal, and that's what I was going to my statement before. If we have really created that polarity within and have that made that relationship the inner marriage of
Mhm.
masculine and feminine, can we really see that from a space of wholeness, from the space of love, from the space of harmony, and from the space of respect, and not fight each other, because the fight outside happens only when there's infight and non-acceptance of our own true nature. So
Yeah.
once that can be healed, once that can be harmonized, I think outside will become much more beautiful, and we'll start having more love, respect, and compassion for each other, and we both can really complement each other.
And some people would argue here that although spiritually and from a soul level, it's great, the idea of, oh, let's all integrate and let's all have a love dance. And there's historically certain social oppression that has to be taken into consideration, right, with women versus men. And so I'm curious how that comes in. Where is that taken into account?
So, like you said, it's a historical perspective, and historically, that's how the norms have been. The trend has been, whether it's India or the West. It's only in the last couple of years have we seen that emergence of evolved feminine. But feminine also, there has been a very destructive feminine energy that has come up. So I think, and like it, just the
Ooh,
same way
speak
there
to
was
that. What is the destructive
ju-
feminine?
just just the same way as there was destructive masculine, which gave birth to the feminine, but there was also partly a rise of evolved feminine, a conscious feminine who took charge and who
Let's
showed the way.
define these. Let's define these. What is destructive feminine and destructive masculine to you?
So to me, the destructive masculine was when the upmanship, one upmanship, that I'm the boss, I'm the ruler, I will make my call, from the space of ego, from the space of no love. And that's what same thing took birth when the feminine came into the movement. Majority of that, from what I could look into, what I can feel, was nothing but the same thing coming from the masculine master agenda, and the women just wanted to fight back, take our rights, which was great. But somehow it got motivated from the space of ego, from the space of hatred, pride, to the love and the empathy and the compassion aspect of what feminine is all about was missing. Which I'm glad in the recent few years there has been so many empowered women. I've been following them on the social media. I've been really connecting with them, and it's beautiful how they have seen that, and they know that that old trend, it will not work anymore, because that will only create more differences, that will only create more disparities, lack of trust, lack of love. And it's time that we bring that healing, both from us men as well as women, both from the inner masculine and feminine. And I think that is where we are moving towards now, from what I see, which will create a new world order, which will create a new community society with love, sustainability, more healing, more scope of working with each other from a more not judgmental and egoistic space.
Okay, I'm just going to pause you for a second. We're going to edit this out. I'm just going to ask you to hold, when you're getting excited, to just make sure you're not moving the mic too much, because there's a lot of the hitting of the, like I hear the hit, I just want to make sure we can use the audio. So I'm going to
Okay.
cut this out. I'm sort of going to go into the next thing.
Yeah.
And this piece will just be cut out. But I just wanted to say it so that we don't lose all the other stuff.
Sure.
But so far, great. Okay. Where were we? Let me just remember. Because I had a thought about what you were saying that was really interesting. Okay, got it.
You get that.
And so when you are speaking about the movement, I just want to clarify, are you speaking about Me Too in particular? Is there another movement that you're referring to, just so that we are on the same page?
I mean, Me Too is just a small aspect from the whole big umbrella of this challenge that we are facing, of trusting men or trusting women, which is your topic, trusting our men.
Right.
And Me Too was something that just happened last year in a big way. Um, it did had an impact in India, but I would say only in the big cities like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, some big cities, and only big names came forward. So if I can say from my cultural perspective and from where I am from, there was not super big trend of Me Too like how it was in the West. Of course, there were news stories. A lot of people came up forward, which was great, which also gave women chance to wake up and also not to get submitted by the higher authorities or some power lobbies, and can voice their truth. And also it gave men in the seat of uh, in charge, domination, not to keep the same trend going, because there is something definitely boiling. There's something definitely which can really create a lot of more mistrust and create a lot of misery in the society, in the social circuit.
And did you find that, did it give more permission culturally for women to come forth or to speak about things going on? Or was it really just primarily, I know I heard about Bollywood was sort of like similar to our Hollywood version, right? It was in Bollywood that there was sort of the big
Yeah.
story about, I don't remember the names of the celebrities, but did you find that it gave permission for the more average woman, not who isn't like necessarily in the limelight, to speak to some of these things?
Yes, I would say, but like you say, it started from a couple of celebrities in Bollywood, and how it just slowly started. The movement spread out on social media. I could see a lot of posts on Facebook, on Instagram, where girls were coming forward and voicing their own things that they underwent, which was great. But I would say, in a very small manner, in a very small space. It was very limited. It was not pan-India movement. It didn't spread out to the smaller towns or cities, from what I could see. But still, it it really woke up the conscience of a lot of men and women, I would say, and it also allowed us to reframe and look into, repattern ourselves as what does it mean, whether if I'm using someone from the power of authority, where I'm using someone just because I need something from him and I can offer something to him, and later I feel that it didn't work for me, then I can. So there were both sides to the coin. I wouldn't say that it was only. They also sometimes I feel the Me Too movement was also misused, but at the same time it also gave birth to a lot of sincere women coming forward and voicing their concerns and voicing whatever happened to them, the abuse they underwent, which also gave the society at large became awake and to that trend that was going on. So in a way, it was good. I'm happy that it happened. I'm happy that a lot of people are more aware of the things that shouldn't happen.
where do you feel there was misuse of the movement?
I think, I mean, there were some stories which came out false. The allegations were false. I'm not saying like maybe 20, 30% of the stories were just because there was a trend going and everybody wanted to jump into it. But
Mhm.
it didn't seem like there were any basis or there was any facts behind those allegations. But yeah, on the larger level, of course, there was something must have happened. And I totally support that, and then nothing of that sort should happen to a woman or being misused by women. So it just awoke the conscience of the society, of the culture, and of course India is no different in that. I mean, masculine, feminine will say the same around the world, whether it's Middle East or India or America.
Mhm.
It's just that it's just limited in its movement. The movement was very limited and only kept to the bigger cities. I wish there were more women from smaller towns and cities that could have come forward to voice their complaints and voice their
Mhm.
concerns. Because larger India resides in out of big cities, which is where majority of the people stay. And
Right.
unfortunately, that is the place which needs more awakening, which needs more protection, which needs more compassion and solidarity from our men. And that's
Right.
what I think your topic is pointing towards.
Yes. I want to get back to that, those men who need that the most. But I just want to go back to what you were speaking about earlier, which was, from my understanding, you speaking to the fact that as women were coming out with the Me Too movement, that there was also sort of an internalized patriarchy in the method in which this was done. I want to make sure that that I understood you correctly here. This idea that, the same energy of the, uh, you know, whether we refer to it as the destructive masculine, toxic masculine, distorted masculine, I feel like there's another word that I'm forgetting, and shadow masculine, whatever, right? That there's that this sort of power dynamic was now being used by the women in the same way that it's been used by the patriarchy and those who benefit from the patriarchy for a really, really long time. Was that what you were referring to?
Yeah, yeah. Part of
Yeah.
it was coming from there.
There was a lot of arguments about, the idea that, and this is here in the West, the idea that, okay, now women had the power to ruin careers, something that they never had in the past, but something that men always had, because men at any point in time could say, oh, this woman, whatever, and just like, psh, the end, right? And I think this is a really fascinating conversation around just humans, right? And the
Mhm.
idea of power dynamics and the fact that if there has been, a particular group of people who have been in power and have had a system that's protected them, that's given them privilege, and then there's suddenly a gap, sort of an opening for those who've been oppressed by that system, oftentimes what starts to happen is, instead of a complete shift, they're coming in and those same tools of oppression are now are sort
Yeah.
of, it's starting to go like this. So I'm curious if you had any more thought, because I know you were talking about this earlier, and I was really curious to hear, just to expand a little bit on this idea of the internalized patriarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with the politics. It's a politics, whether it's a politics globally, politics in the governments, politics in relationship, politics in man and woman. It's just the political agendas, like how we can have one-upmanship, how I can take a revenge. And we see that in general in society, in all spheres. Same thing is happening, where the one who was being repressed before is suddenly like you said, there's a possibility for them to rise up and then take a revenge. And that's been that historical norm that has been going on. And until and unless certain conscious individuals and communities don't partake and don't come forward and share their concern and why we need to move beyond this, it will keep going on for another hundreds of years, and we will be suffering. Only thing
Mhm.
we'll be having is pain, suffering, more hollowness, more distance from each other, and that will serve no one. And we will continue moving in circles back and forth.
So
So it's important
what's
that
the answer?
the answer is collective consciousness, individual consciousness. We have to, work on ourselves. We have to look into it. Am I just being guided or being manipulated by certain forces, or do I have control and authority and power within myself to make a call, to stand up, and also question that, as a man or a woman, that this is not what I want. This is not, it's not helped my parents, it's not helped my grandparents, my ancestors, it has not helped society at large.
Mm,
Why do I need to take part in that? Why cannot be there another way, a more evolved approach, a more conscious way to deal with these issues? And that's what I think is happening. That's what I'm being, me as well as uh, people I've come across are wanting. The discourse has already started. People are looking into it. People are wanting to change that trend, and they're looking for more harmony, more love, more expansion, and
right.
less hatred, less difference,
Yeah.
which is great, which is a renaissance in a way.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about toxic masculinity and these guys that are not in the big cities. In the West, I would say that the number one, or so the top few messages that are really toxic that men get about masculinity is the idea that um, emotionality is weak, right? Don't cry, man up. Um, Now we have this new one about primal sexuality not being okay anymore, right? So all the men are going, I can't flirt, I'm never going to have sex again, my career, because I don't want my career to get ruined, right? Like this is the extremism that's coming up from this, which I will say from a personal standpoint, I think, there's an element of overreacting there, because I think that when a group of people have had privilege for a really long time and then they sort of get it ripped away from them, there's going to be a bit of a tantrum about it, right? So we can look at it on the one hand, there is this idea of like, oh, I know there's a lot of women, when I started talking about me starting the series, we're asking about, okay, when are these men going to give up their power? There was all this obsession about power. um, Power and sex, power and sex. And I mean, that's what's got us here, right? Is powerful men taking advantage and essentially exploiting women for their sexual resources. And so to bring it back, I mean, basically the idea of the different messages is there's like the idea of the emotionality, there's the idea of it's a very 2017 2018 thing, that you need to actually repress your sexuality, which ironically is the stuff that women have been recovering from now for I don't know how long. And I'm sure there's other ones that I'm missing. I'm curious, do you find that it's a very similar thing going on in the East, or are there a different set of messages for the men?
Um, Coming to the topic of toxic masculinity, I think it has, I would say, it is a worldwide trend. It's a worldwide problem, and majority of us don't understand that, the more difference, the more disparities we are creating, the more we are, you know, internally getting corrupted, internally getting hurt, internally getting, having more problems, and which is showing outside, which is showing outside in our relationship to the women
Mm-hmm.
outside. So the root cause is all coming from our own inner conversation. What conversation are we having within? What approach are we having to the world? How
Mm-hmm.
do I see myself? How do I look at women? And what sort of patterns am I living with? What have I seen with my father or mother or my grandparents? And I'm still trying to live with that same mindset, with the same idea,
Mm-hmm.
which is the which is creating more problem, because the women are not no more the same what they were during our mother's generation or our grandmother's generation. Men are not more the same.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand that whole primal tendency, the primal urge, is not bad, provided it can be used from the space of love. Men don't need to lose their primal essence. Men don't want to need not lose their uh, primal urge. It's beautiful. Women want that. Like you were saying, the whole trend is shifting from expression to repression, which is
Mm-hmm.
again another same thing from the different side. But it's creating a lot of more misery. It is creating more difference, and men are hurting themselves, women are hurting themselves, regardless of the fact that we are moving into a new times, we're moving into new possibilities, but there is so much at loss for all of us. So it's imperative that we look into it, we share, we support each other rather than creating more difference that you do your thing, I do my thing. We can support each other, we can create more avenues where we can come together, we can share openly, where we can create more healing spaces, more spaces where we can dance, we can express,
Mm-hmm.
share our contact, share contact, body touch, you know, in a very harmonious, clean space with taking care of your boundaries, taking care of your possibilities, whether you want to go there or not. So more spaces like that are required, more discussions, more discourses like that are required for the newer generation. I would say the kids who are growing up now, they
Mm-hmm.
need not live the same way what maybe our generation or generation before us has lived, because we are moving, we're evolving, we're constantly shifting. So much we have seen in last 15, 10, 15, 20 years, that so much change has happened. Are we willing to accept that? Are we willing to walk with that flow? Or are we still rigid and we say, no, we will continue living the way our ancestors have lived? So choice is ours. Of course, culturally, it's very different here in India or the Middle East or America or Europe. Things are changing, how it will be more progressive in a way in the West than it's here in the East because of core cultural domination of masculine patriarchy. And it is taking time. It will for sure change, but it will take some time, some understanding, some conscious evolution from inside our own self as men. That
Mm-hmm.
what do we really want? How do we want to have more harmonious, loving relationship?
Mm-hmm. What do you think men should be doing to really acknowledge their privilege, um, as women are trying to open their hearts again? Right. I can speak to, myself, as much as I'm here trying to create a bridge, trying to open communication. I myself am a survivor, and there are times when, there's a lot of things, whether it's something new on the news or uh, an incident that happens in my personal life, where I will get triggered again, where all the rage of all the times that I wasn't taken seriously as a woman, as all the times that I've been transgressed in my boundaries, all the times that I've been belittled and humiliated will naturally come up. And uh, so I'm curious to hear a little bit about what you think men can do to acknowledge that they haven't had that same journey. And so, yes, even though we can look at ourselves as, oh, we're all human and we all need to integrate and we all need to have open conversations and all that good stuff, which I'm 100% on board with, how can we also acknowledge the systemic difference here?
I think where men can take the onus, and also acknowledge whatever has happened and at large was really doing of their own unconscious uh, being, which was coming from their unconscious domain and not from what really should be. Because possibly it was their inner mass feminine which was suffering, which was not integrated yet. And I think men can really create more, take part in more healing spaces. Men can come forward to share their love, to share their trust, and to heal that spaces by inviting women, by inviting going into those spaces, by sharing their conscious evolution, conscious journey, and voice it that from now onwards we are all equals. I accept my own inner aspects of feminine, masculine, and I see the same in you.
Mm-hmm.
I perceive the same in you, and you're no different from that. I think when more of those spaces can be created, when more of those discourses can happen in society, through people who are really living that, through teachers, through healers, through yogics, through shamans, through whatever, whoever is on this conscious path. I think more and more healing, more and more love, more and more spaces can be created, more and more sustainable environments can be created.
Mm.
So I feel that is one thing that I feel more and more men should come forward and acknowledge.
Yeah. See, it's like I have this like push and pull inside my system, which has been, part of why I'm so fascinated with all these conversations, because on the one hand, I'm nodding with you going like, I'm all about like love, come together, let's do the things, let's all integrate. And there's a part of me that wonders if it's not, just part of the process to allow, in this case, it's women, but it really is any oppressed group to come out and to throw their tantrum and to do the things that were done to them as like a way to get it out of their system, because it nearly feels like it's a release of old trauma that's coming up, right? So although, consciously we can look and we can see from afar, like, okay, this is a pattern of internalized patriarchy, and doing the same thing over again, is not going to move us forward. But that sometimes maybe, and I have no idea, right? But maybe the answer is actually to just listen and to allow for that rage and the tantrum to happen until it dissipates. And to me, the Me Too movement has been a little bit of that. I'm so happy that there has been a chance for women to voice their stories. I was, part of, that hashtag, as were so many people I know. And so, basically it feels like, I don't know, like on the one hand, I want to go straight to the more evolved, like let's all have a, compassionate, open-hearted conversation. And on the other hand, I do think that there is something really healthy about the tantrum piece of it, about the momentary righteous rage of like, we're going to take power, and like all the years that we had to put up with your stuff, you now have to put up with our stuff, right? Which, if we think about it, like if that's the collective dynamic on an individual level, when you're having a fight, like let's say with your partner, and they've been talking the whole time, and then you finally get a chance to talk, it's not the evolved version to do that, but you're like, I finally am talking, I'm going to say all the things, right? And of course the answer is a much more conscious, level-headed communication, but usually initially you have to go through trigger, get it out, and then you calm down to like go, okay, now we're going to have a conscious conversation. So I'm just sharing sort of my internal push and pull, because I'm coming to this whole series going, I don't necessarily have a very distinct viewpoint about it needs to be this or that. I'm just curious, what is it that we need to go through as a process, as a collective, in order to get to this place of union?
Great question, and that's part of my work. That's something that I personally have also looked into, researched, and also I share with a lot of people. And I don't mean that you have to repress. No one should repress. There are possibilities, meditations, tools where we can take it out, vent it out. But venting it out on a individual or venting it out and working on something deeper, there are two possibilities. Like I can see a person who has just triggered me and I can just go for an emotional reaction, which is something we need to look into, where is it coming from. Or the larger part is to really work on something more substantial, more concrete, and rather than letting it to limit it to one individual. And that is the real work, that is the real transformation, that is where the real transformation happens.
Yeah.
And through all these processes and meditations, there are really possibilities to let go, to really solve the deep rooted issue which has been staying within us, not from this life, but maybe we are carrying it from our ancestors, from our mother, grandmother, more generations, which we need to look into and ask to stop, pray and create some intention, create some spaces where we can look into that, it's enough. I've had it enough. And I don't want to carry on with that burden, with that trauma. I'm a conscious soul, I'm a conscious being, and if I own myself, I no longer belong to that drama. I want to cut myself from that. I will live my life as an evolved conscious soul and not from the states of fear, guilt, and all the things that have been triggering me, all the things that have been hurting me as a woman or as a man, especially as a woman. So I think it's imperative that we really look 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 inside, look within, and also take onus, create that possibility where we can release that pain, that trauma, the, the the suffering that we have been carrying on an individual level as a collective, and
Yeah.
that's where we need more conscious souls, conscious women who are already can look into these trends and can create more healing spaces where sisterhood can happen, where women can come as a tribe, women can come to heal each other, to share with each other, and also you know give give men a chance, give men a sort of, because we men come from a woman, and it's like you have such a big role you've played, and maybe as you could see from that space of somebody who's giving birth to a life, somebody who's bringing a life on this earth to breathe, to eat, to experience, can also come from the space of uh, nourishment, of care, of offering your, that I apologize you, but I also at the same time not forgive or forget what happened, and I would like you to realize and acknowledge what happened so that we don't continue with the same misery and suffering that we've had for generations and generations.
Right.
I think that's one part that I feel is very important to me also, because I also see the same trends happening in my own culture, in my own life. And I saw as I was growing up how it was creating so much suffering for women, for child who's experiencing all that violence, emotional, verbal, physical, and that is not really healthy for no one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing here is that, a lot of women, it's safety, right? We just don't feel safe. We still don't feel safe. We don't feel safe because of past actions. We don't feel safe because we haven't been living in a system that protects us.
Hmm.
And the the ironic thing is that men, so much of the masculine is about the protector, and there's again been a distortion in that as well, because the protector of women has now become the perpetrator, right? And so women, I mean, because I work primarily with women, it's like it's the same story. It doesn't matter where she's come from, how she's grown up. There's a lack of safety around being a woman, owning your feminine, owning your sensuality, because there's countless, numerous stories of ways in which that wasn't safe and how it still isn't safe. And so I'm curious what for you, just as we wrap up, what for you feels like the number one thing that men can do to help create safety for the women?
Um, First of all, just for men to first going in, again coming back to the same thing, and recognizing that it's there's no difference. I don't feel anything wrong in accepting my own feminine aspects. I don't feel anything wrong to you know take care of my own needs, my own physicality, my own emotions. I accept my emotions. Like that's something which we men are not very good at, voicing our truth, voicing our emotions, feeling into it, because of that part, outside always gets affected. Because of that part of not accepting these aspects of feminine inside, we don't bridge that gap outside. And I feel for men to, until we don't work on these aspects inside, and also taking help, taking support, opening our heart to the women to teach us, to heal us, to support us. And I think that is more from where feminine is more about receiving, acceptance. You know.
Got it. So what I'm hearing is really by the men accepting and integrating more of their feminine, it will create safety for the women.
Absolutely, absolutely. And more and more we can create that discourses from a space of love and healing, and not from a space of you against me, or,
Right.
then it will only create more disparity. And
Right.
yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, SHIV BHARAT. It's so great to connect with you and to chat with you today, all the way from India. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about your work?
My website is under construction. For the time being, people can reach me on my Instagram account, which is shivbharat_17. And
We'll post it also by the
that'll be
videos.
great.
People can.
That'll be great. And I'll be happy to answer. And I also do workshop retreats in India and around the world. So if people are coming toward this side of the world, or I'm traveling around, I'll keep it updated. And I'm also happy to work one-on-one or with couples, which I've been doing, and it has been very transformative. So yeah, I'll be very happy to share that more.
Great. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you very much for creating this possibility where more and more discourses like that could happen. And really congratulations for that. Good luck with your project. May we create more healing and harmony and love.
Thank you.